last video we looked at an MVC program, a web app. We looked at a controller and the way it opened a view. So just to remember what we did, we made a class which was called home controller, and in it there was an action which is called create, and that means we were to type, therefore, in the URL, type home create as the segments at the end of our URL, and that would access by default the form, the page I should say, with the same name as the action. So if we take a look at that, we have the home controller, which is what we're looking at the moment, and then we have in the views we had this create. So let's take a look at that, and it couldn't be simpler. We've got a bit of, shall we say, HTML, and when we run that, if I can see my run button, there we are, and click the run. So if we just copy this segment of the URL and then paste that at the end of our URL, then that should, if we don't put too many slashes in there, that should just bring up hello displayed on our HTML page. So just taking a look at that again, we've got the home controller in the controllers folder, well, ignoring models completely. Then we've got the views, we've got the home folder, and then in there we've got our create CS.html, which is an HTML page just for the moment, but it's got CS, you can see CS, which means we can include some C# code in that page as well in the view, but we'll talk about that later. I now want to create a form, so instead of just a bit of simple, shall we say, HTML, which is just text, I want to make a form and place a button on the form as well. Now I could just run this code as it stands, it will make a form, but the problem is you won't actually see it on the HTML page. So I'm going to put a button in there as well, as simple as possible, and this is going to be the text which appears on the button. So I can indeed try running that as well. Or perhaps I'd better stop the app and then make sure everything is saved and then run again. I can run it from here and take that segment, paste it into my URL, and you see I got a very simple form which has only got one button on it. So that's how we create a basic form, by using the opening and closing form tags. I'm now going to use the form to make a post. So to do that, I need to put in there the method is going to be post. That means it's going to call a method in here which I've yet to define. So it's going to go back in the controller from there and call a method which I've yet, as I say, yet to define. So the method will look something similar. So I need to identify the controller that it's going to call, which is using this tag here, and so it's going to be the home controller. And then what's the name of the method? Well, I'll call the method create student, so I can indicate that ASP action, and I've got this is popped up, so let me dispense with that and that. It's creeped in by we need to specify that our method is going to be, our action is going to be a post. By the way, you could actually qualify this with the tag, you could qualify this method with HTTP GET, but it's by default it's a GET, so we need the post. And let's make this as simple as possible. Avoid return, and so I'll delete the return, and I'll put a breakpoint in here as well, and then save, and then I'll press the F5 key to run it. So now if we add our segment, eventually we'll get our form with the create student button. So what have we got so far? We've got the create method, we've typed in home create, that being the name of the controller and that being the name of the action. There's our controller and there's our action. So far it's just called this action and returned a view. Which view? The view which has got the same name as the action, which is this view here, create CSHTML. Don't forget, that's our form. It's got the, now let's see what happened when we press the create student button, which is this button here. It tells us it's a post, so it's going to look for the create student action, which is here, and from the home controller. So it should, let's see what happens when we click the button. You'll see that it's entered the code here, it's entered the post in here. So then what we do with that, how we introduce a model as well, we can see later. But for the moment, that's the absolutely simplest way that we can create a form which does a post.